Hey guys, my name is Justin. I'm one of the youth associates here at Village Church, and I just want to welcome you here to Village Youth. We're actually in week 3 of our series, Good to Know, which has been all about wisdom. And guys, the thing about wisdom is that it is a big, massive topic. So instead of trying to tackle this entire thing at once, we've been looking at specific areas where we can grow and apply wisdom to our everyday lives. We've looked at how we could be making wise decisions. We've looked at how to navigate suffering and hard times in life. And tonight, we're looking at an important topic that is also very practical, that in my opinion, if we don't get this right, it can actually have a negative impact on so many different areas of our lives and who we are ultimately becoming. Tonight, we are talking about friendships. Maybe you've heard it said before, show me your friends and I will show you your future. And I actually think that phrase has some truth to it because the people that you surround yourself with have a great level of influence over your life. And in some ways, it can actually almost help guide the path that you're heading towards, whether for good or for bad. The people that you are running with will help determine what you are running towards. So it's really important for us to look at the Bible and see some of the things it says about friendship, because some of us need good friends. Well, others of us actually need to become good friends. So hopefully during this time, we can find some wisdom and some guidance on how we can make good friends, how we can keep good friends, and ultimately how we can become good friends ourselves. So we're gonna start in Proverbs 18, verse 24. This is what it says. A man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Now this is interesting because this passage was written during a time when the culture was very family oriented. But it looks like what it's saying is that there's actually something unique about a friendship that makes it completely different from a family relationship. There's actually a uniqueness that a friendship brings into your life that any other type of relationship cannot bring. Different than a sibling, different than a family member, different than, a cousin or a romantic relationship. And this uniqueness is part of what makes the friendship relationship so important to us. When I was in grade 11, I was on my school's basketball team, and I was on this team with 2 people who really did not get along with each other. One of those people was my good friend, Colton, and the other person was actually my cousin. His name was Dale. And now we were on the bus back home from a game that we had just lost. So everyone on the bus, you can imagine, is feeling a little frustrated. Now, my cousin Dale and my friend Colton were actually sitting really close to each other on this bus, and they would not stop bickering and arguing back and forth, until all of a sudden, my cousin stands up, and I kid you not, he turns around and he karate chops my friend Colton right in the face. Like, he went full Cobra Kai on this man's face, and all pandemonium broke loose. They were like fighting each other, everyone's screaming, the coach is yelling from the front of the bus, and the bus driver is like, weaving between traffic. So I get up and I try my best to, get in between them and separate them from each other. And I remember in this moment, my cousin, he looks at me in the midst of the chaos and he says, man, I can't believe you were friends with this guy. And out of nowhere, Colton, my friend, he yells over my shoulder, you can't choose your family, but you can choose your friends. You can't choose your family, but you can choose your friends. Now, that maybe was a little mean, and that's a pretty crazy scenario, but there's actually some truth to that statement because different relationships mean different things, right? What makes a friendship so unique is that there's actually nothing connecting you to that other person. They choose to be around you. They choose to be your friend. They choose to be in your life. And this is different from a family member because a brother or a cousin, regardless of what you are going through or how you feel about one another, they're always going to be in that relationship with you. A brother is always going to be your brother, even if they don't like you. A cousin will still be your cousin, even if they don't like you. But a friend does not have to be your friend. They choose to be. There's something unique about this relationship, something special that you can't find anywhere else. So let's just take a few minutes and let's talk about this idea of friendships. Turn to the people or the person around you and talk about this idea. If you are by yourself and you're watching this online, maybe just think about this question for a little bit and talk to somebody that you trust later. Here is the question. Who is the first friend that you made and how did you become friends? Hey, welcome back. I hope you guys enjoyed that time talking about how you became friends with other people. This is an important thing to talk about because we actually live in a culture that doesn't really prioritize friendships. Instead, our culture chooses to prioritize something else, something like romantic relationships. And we see this all over the place, right? Like in music, in movies and even like on the cover of magazines in like grocery stores. This celebrity is dating that celebrity. And now this celebrity broke up with that celebrity. But we never see a magazine that covers like, this celebrity is good friends with this person. They're pen pals, they're buddies. Friendship is not that important to us. We put romance first, and friendship usually takes the back seat. Now this is interesting because you guys are actually growing up in a generation that is more connected than ever before. You guys have endless ways to communicate through smartphones and social media and online gaming, but what research is showing us is that we have the most connected generation in history that is also at the very same time the most lonely generation in history. Our lives are playing out in a day and an age where we are starving for deep friendships, but we're kind of settling for shallow connections. And this does not leave us feeling satisfied. This only leaves us feeling more lonely. There was actually a recent study done on the topic of loneliness, and there are a number of things that are being discovered right now. They say that we're actually in an epidemic of loneliness. Nearly half of 16 to 24-year-olds feel lonely often or very often, and Gen Z identifies with loneliness more than any other generation and is considered the loneliest generation in North American history. This is why we need to talk about friendship, because I believe that there is a better way forward where we can find ways to make good friends, keep good friends, and actually become good friends to others. So how do we make good friends? Well, maybe that isn't actually the right question, because what if a friend is not actually something that you make, but a relationship that you discover? Friends are people that you discover, not something that you make. Here's what I mean. Friends cannot come from nothing. There has to be a commonality between two people, something that they share, something that is joining them together, a common interest, a common passion, a common hobby, something that cannot be created, it can only be discovered. For example, me and my wife, we are in a romantic relationship. And I mean, we are friends, but primarily we're in a romantic relationship. And romantic relationships are interesting because you spend a lot of face-to-face time with each other, right? Like you're absorbed with one another. You can't get enough of that other person. You're constantly face-to-face talking about each other and talking about your love and your feelings for one another. Now, a friendship is much less about spending face-to-face time absorbed in one another. Instead, in a friendship, you are spending the majority of your time side by side, right? Shoulder to shoulder, with a common interest. That is the thing that you're pursuing. And this is why C.S. Lewis, I love what he says, because he kind of describes a friendship with this statement. He says, "What? You too? I thought that I was the only one." See, friendship is something that is discovered. What, you play that sport? What, you like those books? What, you do that activity? Me too. A friendship is a relationship where two individuals share something in common, an interest, a hobby, a passion, and maybe you both play the same sport, maybe you both like the same music, maybe you have something in common that you share. So the essence of friendship is not so much looking towards one another, but together looking towards the same thing, looking in the same direction. It's about more than just the relationship, it's about the commonality that each of you share. So how do we keep good friendships? Friendships are something that you discover, not something that you just make. But even though it isn't something that you make, there's still effort involved because it takes effort to keep good friends. So how do we become people that are good at keeping our friendships? So we're going to quickly look at 4 pieces of wisdom in the Bible that I think will be helpful for all of us, whether you're a Christian or not. These 4 things will help us keep good friendships, and they are consistency, carefulness, candor, and counsel. So here's the first point, this idea of consistency. It comes from Proverbs 17:17, where it says this: "A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for a time of adversity." A friend loves at all times. There's a consistency to it that is required of a good friend. Now, when it says a friend loves at all times, that doesn't mean literally like all the time. Like every second of every day, you have to be present and involved and invested. What it means is that a friend is a person that loves during all kinds of times, during the good times and the bad times, when things are up and when things are down, when things are easy and when things are hard. In other words, you can't be a good friend without availability. Consistency, availability. This isn't just a nice person that you have a good conversation with this one time. This is someone who you know in the good and the bad times that you can count on them and that they will be there with you when you need them to. I think for so many of us, we get, so busy and so distracted with our own lives that we end up living in a way where we are never available. we end up missing out on the friends that God is maybe trying to put right in front of us. So, what would it look like for us to stick with people even in the tough times, to be available, to be consistent? Second point is this: carefulness. We get this from Proverbs 25, where it says, "Let your foot be seldom in your neighbor's house, lest he have his fill of you and hate you." Some strong language there. This is carefulness that is required to friendship. Do not take this relationship for granted. Be wise and treat it with care. The reminder of this passage is that too much of a good thing can actually end up becoming a bad thing. So tread lightly. It's kind of a warning. For example, I love going to McDonald's, and I love going there and getting a bunch of chicken McNuggets and just like chowing down with my friends, dipping in all the sauces. But a couple of years ago, me and one of my friends, Brian, we actually had a competition to see who could eat 50 McNuggets the fastest. And that maybe sounds easy, but it's pretty hard. Well, to make a long story short, I lost. But both of us would actually agree that this was just a really bad idea. We both felt super sick afterwards. It was not very fun, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't really love getting McNuggets anymore. I mean, too much of a good thing caused it to lose its appeal to me. So you gotta be careful with how you handle and navigate your friendships. Too much of a good thing can actually become a bad thing, but it's also important for us at the same time to be careful with the types of friendships that we choose to have. Because remember, the closer you are to people, the greater the influence that they are going to have in your life. And at the same time, the greater the influence you are going to have in their life. So good friendships can pull you up, and wrong friendships can actually pull you down. Imagine you're standing on the edge of like a swimming pool, and your friend who is swimming swims over to the edge, and they ask you to pull them up out of the water. Now, you reach down your hand to get them, and at that moment, is it easier for you to pull your friend up out of the water, or is it easier for them to pull you down into the water? I would say it's much easier for that friend to pull you down, like gravity's on their side, the other person is like, they could get you out of balance, all that kind of stuff. So guys, the wrong friend can lead you in the wrong direction. So we must be careful with our friendships. The third point is this: candor. Candor. So we get this from Proverbs 27. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. Profuse are the kisses of an enemy. That's interesting. So when we're talking about candor, we're actually talking about truth-telling. We're talking about the type of friendship where there's a vulnerability, an openness, a transparency. But what is the wound of a friend? That doesn't sound very good. This whole passage is kind of talking about a metaphor that is describing those words of truth that your friend needs to hear for their own good, but you know it's going to be kind of painful for them to hear it. And I think we all need people in our lives that are willing to speak the truth to us in love. Because the worst thing that could happen to us is to be immersed in unreality. We actually need people in our lives that we can be honest, authentic, people who are really, like those people that really know us at the deepest parts of ourselves. This is where like social media really complicates things for us, because one of the dangers of social media is that it's not really teaching us how to become really good friends. It's actually teaching us how to be really good managers of other people's views of us. And this very easily begins to trickle into our real lives. We might not even be aware of this, but we are consistently doing all that we can to try and manage people's views of us. We aren't really honest, right? We aren't really open. We aren't really real with anyone. We say what we think other people want us to say. We try to be the person we think other people want us to be. We do what we think other people want us to do. And as we do this, we are just creating this superficial relationship, not deep friendships. And as long as we continue to do this, people will not actually know the real you and will not even be able to be friends with the real you. My fear is that for so many of you, that you will go through your entire time in high school and you will only ever experience the relational depth of an Instagram relationship. Each of us needs to fight to become the type of friends where we can be real, we can be honest, we can be vulnerable, we can be authentic. We need friends close enough to us that they can speak honest truth into our lives. But in order to do that, we have to be real with them. Now, the last piece of advice is this idea of counsel. Now, counsel we get from this passage in 1 Thessalonians, the New Testament, 5 verse 11. It says, "Therefore, encourage one another and build one another up just as you are doing." Here's the thing. We all need a bit of encouragement every now and then. Paul, he's the author of this book. He's telling these people to encourage one another, to build one another up, to strengthen one another, to spur one another on. As a friend, you should be a source in the life of someone else that helps them to get to where they want to go. Help them become the type of person that they are trying to be. We all need encouragement. We all need help to keep us going, but it's not the type of thing that you usually ask for. I mean, I know how much encouragement means to me. There have been multiple times where, I've been having a bad day, bad week at work, where I'm just going through the motions and things are hard. And someone will send me like a random text, encouraging me, telling me that I'm doing a good job or that they're proud of me. Man, this is a game changer. Hey, what would it look like for us to be the type of people, to be the type of friends that initiate this type of activity, that go out of their way to encourage those who are closest to us? Imagine the difference that would make if this just became a part of our daily routine, that every day we would just take a minute, maybe two, just to send an encouraging text to someone close to us. That would make the world of a difference for so many people. Now, what we've seen so far is that in order to keep a good friend, we need to have some level of consistency, carefulness, candor, and counsel. But if you're anything like me, you may feel one of two ways right now. Maybe you're feeling a bit discouraged because you realize that you actually don't have a friend that's like this in your life. And you're just kind of like longing for that type of relationship. Like you want something like this in your life. Or maybe you're feeling a bit challenged because you just realize that this is like a really high standard that the Bible's putting on us, and you have failed to be this type of friend to those around you. And guys, let's be honest. This is so hard. It's hard to open up. It's hard to be vulnerable. It's hard to be real. It's hard to be transparent, to open up and to be consistent, to always show up in times of need. This is not easy stuff. But we're not alone. God is not asking us to do anything that he himself was not willing to do. In John 15, verses 12 to 14, it says this: "This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. No greater love is there than this." The very next day, Jesus would go to the cross and he would do this very thing. He would lay down his life for his friends. Now, if you're looking for a good friend, you do not have to look any further than this. You don't have to look any further than Jesus hanging on the cross for you. For him, it wasn't enough to just tell us what it takes to be a good friend. He showed us. He went to the greatest extremes. He went to the end of himself to make sure that we understood exactly what it looks like to be a great friend. And he didn't just do this so that we would know or understand. He did this so that we could actually experience true friendship. Jesus laid down his life for us as the ultimate display of friendship to us. Isn't that crazy? That it was our sin, it was our brokenness, it was our mistakes that put Jesus on the cross in the first place. And the Bible actually says that when Jesus went to the cross, we were actually his enemies at that point. And instead of turning on us, he takes it upon himself, and in this great act of love, he pays the ultimate price for us. That we could be his friends, that we could have this friendship with God, and that it could be restored. I love how one old preacher, his name is Charles Spurgeon, this is how he puts it. Jesus Christ looked down from the cross and saw all the people denying him and betraying him and forsaking him and mocking him and rejecting him. And in the greatest act of friendship in the history of the world, he stayed. He stayed on that cross for you and for me. He experienced what we were meant to experience. He shows us what it means to be a great and true friend. He is that one friend that will never let you down. He's the one friend that will never abandon you. He's that one friend that will never forsake you. He's consistent. He's good. He goes all the way for you because he loves you. So if you know Jesus as your friend, then he invites you to share something in common with him, to share his love for the people of this world. And he invites you to go and live as a great friend and to share this love with other people. You have a great friend in Jesus. Now you can go and share this friendship with others. So that's the end of our time for today. So you guys are going to go into your small group and talk a little bit more about friendship. If you're watching this by yourself, I would like you to think about these questions and maybe talk to somebody that you trust about this. But I've really enjoyed my time with you guys, and I hope you have a great discussion. We'll see you guys next time.